Hello everyone, today I'm going to do the 29th video of my database management systems question video series. Today I'm going to discuss the 29th question of the question list. Let's go to our question list here. Under day 15, here's the question 29 and before starting this question, I have to remind you we are continuing a question started from question 17. So if you didn't watch the previous videos, I think it's better you watch them first before watching this one. Otherwise you will not understand what we are doing here, because we are answering for these questions using a database we created in question 17. Okay. Let's go to our question. Here is the first part of the question 19. Find the all marks obtained by the students in all the subjects in the first term to the integer. Okay, this is a different type of a question. Here we have to find all the marks of the first students in all subjects in first term test. Okay. You can see there's only one condition here, only the first term test marks, and the special part is we have to convert them to integers. Okay, let's go to our HDSQL browser, and here is the database I told you. We are answering for this question using this database exam_mark_db, and these are the tables we created inside that database, and we entered some data into those tables. Now let's write our query. When we are searching details, there are two methods, joining method and the subquery method. First I'm going to use the inner join method, and after that we can discuss the other part. You can see there are only two tables. Let me show you. First one is the table we use to store the marks of the student. Here student exam mark record table, that's the table, and after that we have to filter this data using the term ID, only first term details. We have to filter only first term details. Okay, so you can see in the exam term attribute, it only stored the exam term ID. Here in the exam term table, that's the table we use to store the details of the terms. Here term name, first term and second term, and exam dates, and here's the ID. You can see that's the ID which foreign from the exam term table to the student exam mark record table, this table. So if we are going to filter this data, we have to filter them using the ID. But if you use the inner join method, you have to join these two tables. So let's do that part. Select asterisk. We use asterisk to get all the attributes inside our results. For now I'm using the asterisk mark, and from here I'm mentioning the first table in exam_mark_db. Here's the first table, student exam mark record. Okay, now I'm joining using inner join method. You can use the self join method too, but in this case I'm using inner join method, and I'm joining the exam term table to this one. So exam, in the exam_mark_db, here's the exam term table. Now we have to mention the connection between those two tables to arrange the records according to the relation. Here on, we use the keyword on, and here's the first connection. You can see in the table, this term ID in the exam term table is the attribute which foreign to the student exam mark record. So we have to mention that connection. In student exam mark record table, the exam term ID should equal to the exam term ID in exam term table. Okay, here's the connection, and let's execute this one. Here you can see both tables join together with a corresponding order. Now we can find our answer using this one, but before that we have to filter the data here. Where is the keyword we are using before mentioning the conditions. Here's the condition. We have to there's only one condition. So in exam term table, the term name should equal to, we can filter the data using the term name because we joined these two tables together. So the term name is already in our answer or result, so should be first term test. First term. Execute this one. Here you can see only the first term marks are showing here. Now we can find there are 24 records here. We can find our marks using the integer format, in the integer format. Okay, for that there's a keyword called round. You can see in the results there are decimal points here, 78.6, 78.24, like that. There are decimal points, but we have to convert them to integers. So I'm using the keyword round. We can find the round value using this function. So here round, and then we have to give it the attribute we want to convert the values to integers. So in the student exam mark record table, the mark attribute should be changed, and after that here we can set how many decimal points we have to left in the question. We don't need any decimal points, so I am mentioning the number 0, and let's execute this one. Here you can see all the results, all the marks changed to integers without any decimal points. And here in the attribute, in the result, it's not very suitable, so I'm changing it using the keyword as, and here's the new attribute name. First term marks, first term marks, like that. We can enter any name. So let's execute this one. Here you can see it changed to first term marks, and this is the final answer, and this is the query we use to get that answer. You can see it's in integer format. Let me go back, let me cut this one and replace the asterisk marks. You can see when we are joining the two tables, in the result there are many unwanted attributes here, like exam date, term name. We need only the marks table. If you use the subquery method, it will only output the specific attribute. For these types of questions, it's better we use the subquery method. Okay, let's replace the asterisk mark to the round function. You can see the result can be found using this method to the inner join method, but I'm going to show you the subquery method too. So let's clear this one and write a new one. Here in the subquery, first we have to mention the main table. In this case, we need the data in the student exam mark record table, this table. So select for now asterisk from exam mark db. Here's the table student exam mark record table. Let me show you the data. Here you can see we found the data recorded inside the student exam mark record table. Now we can filter this data using the subquery method. So first I'm mentioning the where keyword, and after that we have to mention the attribute we are going to filter. Here we have to filter the data using the term. So the term recorded in exam term ID attribute here. So in the main table, in student exam mark record table, the exam term ID should equal to, this is the subquery, and you can see now I'm going to write my subquery, but you know it will output here. Let me show you. In the exam term table, when we search the ID from the exam term table using the exam term table, we need only the first term ID, and that ID is number 1, so it will only output a single value. So you can use the in keyword. Usually we use that in keyword when there are more than one results to compare, but in this case there will be only one value outputted, so we can use the equal mark. And after that, here select, here's the subquery, select not asterisk, we need to output only the exam term ID. So in exam term table we need to output the term ID, and here I'm mentioning the table. So exam term table, sorry, exam mark DB and exam term table. And now again we have to mention our condition to filter the first filter the ID of the first term. So where exam term table term name should equal to first term. Let me show you the answer. You can see the data filtered, only the number 1 is recorded in the exam term ID attribute. So we filter our data. You can see, not like in the inner join method, it will not show these tables, term ID, term name, exam date, like that. Only the details, only the attributes of student exam mark record table. Now there are less data, and we need only the mark attribute. So in exam term table, sorry, not that one, student exam mark record table, we need only the mark attribute. Okay, let's execute this one. Here you can see, here's the result, and there are decimal points in our result. Now we can use our round keyword. So let's cut this one and write the keyword round, and here's the data we are searching in the student exam mark record table, the mark attribute, and here's the condition. We don't need any decimal points. So let's execute this one. Here you can see it only showing the decimal points, sorry, it only showing the integer values, and we can change this to as the attribute can change to first term marks. Okay, that here, this is the final answer, and this is the query we used to get that answer. You can see the difference between the inner join and the sub query method, and there will be less unwanted data if you use the subquery method. So that's why I showed you the both both subquery and inner join methods. Okay, we completed the first part of the question. Now let's move on to the second part. Find the average into 2 decimal places in marks obtained by the students for the first term mathematics subject. You can see there are 2 conditions we have to use to filter the data, first term and the subject mathematics. and after that we have to find the average, but in this case we have to find the average into 2 decimal places. This is another new question. Again we have to find 2 decimal places. Now let's go to our question. Let's go to our HDSQL browser. I'm going to use the subquery method again because there will be less unwanted data, and here's the first one. I'm going to show you the details recorded in the student exam mark record using the select query. So select asterisk from in exam mark DB student exam mark record table. Here these are the data of that record. Now we can filter the data using these 2 attributes, subject ID and the exam term ID. We can use subqueries to find those ID from the original table which have their origin. Here you can see this attribute foreign from the subject table. Here the subject is for ID is foreign from this table like that, and the exam term table, that's the table which records the details of the exam. And here I'm using the where keyword, and here's the first condition. I'm filtering this data using the subject. So we have to mention the attribute in the main table. So in student exam mark record table, the subject ID should equal to the data outputted from this subquery. Again you can see in the subject table we have to find the ID of the subject mathematics. It's number 1. So when we search the ID from this query, it will only output a single value. That's why I use the equal mark. Otherwise if there are more than one mark, you can use the in keyword. Okay, let's put the equal mark and write our subquery. Select, we need to output the subject ID in the subject table. So subject table subject ID from, here's the database exam mark DB, and here's the subject table. Again we have to filter these 3 records using the subject name, and it will output the ID. Okay, subject where, and in the subject table subject name should equal to mathematics. Okay, here let's execute this one. You can see the subject ID changed to number 1. Only the number 1 records are showing here. After that, again there's another condition. We have to filter the data using the exam term ID. Here in the question you can see we have to find only the first term test marks. Okay, here again this is the main table attribute in student exam mark record. The exam term ID should equal to the data outputted from this subquery. Select, I'm writing a subquery to the exam mark DB. So in exam term table, so in exam term table it should output the exam term ID, and here is the table exam mark DB in the exam term table, where it will output only the ID which have the attribute first term, which have the term name first term. Okay, where in exam mark DB, this is the condition, exam term and term name should equal to first term. Okay. First term. Execute this one too. Here you can see only the first term details are showing here. You can see the term ID changed to number 1, and that's the ID of the first term test, and also number 1 is the ID of the mathematics subject. and here is our final query. Now we can use this data to find the average marks. Here what will output the average. We have to use the keyword AVG. We use this keyword in the previous videos of my question set, and when we are using the average keyword, we have to mention the attribute we want to find the average. So in this case, in student exam mark record table, we have to find the average recorded in the marks attribute. Okay, let's execute this one. Here average is 71.845, but in the question you can see we have to find the average into 2 decimal places. So again we have to round this, find the round value of this average result. So again let's cut this one. I'm going to cut this one and write our round keyword, round, and in that function we have to mention the value, and this is the value. I'm adding the average to this round function, and here's the condition. We need to find the round. We need to find the this result into 2 decimal places. So that's why I use the the number 2. Okay, and now we can execute this one. Here you can see our average changed to 2 decimal places, 71.84. Again we can change the attribute name of the output. Here this attribute is not very suitable, so average marks, that's a good name. So average marks. Let's execute this one. Here is the final answer, and this is the query we used to get that answer. Now we complete the second part of the question. Let's move on to the third one. What is the lowest mark obtained for science subject in all term examinations of all students in class 11A? Okay, in this one you can see we have to fill the data using the class, and there's another condition. We have to fill the data using the subject science, but this result should, in the result we have to find the lowest mark recorded in all terms under these 2 conditions. Okay, let's go to our HDSQL browser again, and let me clear this one. Before writing our query, let me highlight a very important part here. In the class table, you can see the class table have no connection here, the class ID and the class name, but we have to filter the data in the student exam mark record table, because that's the table which records the marks of the student. But in this table I think you can't find any relation to the class table, but here in the student table you can see it have the relation. It the class ID foreign to the student table from the class table, and after that the index number foreign to the student exam mark record table. That's the connection. You can see if we joined these tables, we have to join 3 tables together. But if you use the subquery method, it will be very complicated, because you have to filter the ID from the class table, and after that after that it output the class ID. Then you have to write a subquery to filter the student ID, then again have to filter the data using that ID, so that will be very complicated. It's better you use the inner join method for this one, like this. Here select, I am joining the tables together. First here you have to join class table and student table and the student exam mark table, and after that subject and the exam term. Here in the question again sorry, not exam term. You don't have to connect the exam, because you have to find the details for all the terms. You need to filter the data only in subject. So these 4 tables are enough. The class table, student exam mark table, and the subject table. Here select asterisk. For now I'm using the asterisk mark from, here's the first table, exam term, exam mark DB, and in the database I'm joining the class table first. Okay, and inner join, I'm joining this table with, in the exam mark database, the student table. Those 2 tables have the direct connection. So here's the connection. The class ID in class table should equal to the class ID in student table. Okay, that's the connection. Let me show you the answer. Here we join 2 tables, class table and the student table, and after that again inner join. This is the 3rd table. I'm joining the student exam mark record table to this one. So in exam mark DB, student exam mark record table. Okay, and here's the connection on the index number in student exam mark record table should equal to the index number in student table. Let's execute this one too. Here we combine all 3 tables together, and here's the last one, inner join. I'm joining the subject table. So exam mark DB subject on the subject ID in subject table should equal to the subject ID in student exam mark record table. That's the connection, and let's execute this one. Here we combine the subject table too. Okay, here are the 4 tables. Now we can filter our, we can mention our condition. So here's the first one. I'm using the where clause, and here's the first one. I'm filtering the data using the subject. In the question you can see we have to filter the data using the subject science. Okay, now we can filter the data directly using the subject name. So in subject table, subject name should equal to science. Okay, here you can see only the science related records are showing here. And here's the second one. I am filtering the data according to the class, using the class name. So in class table, class name should equal to class, go to the question, 11A. Here 11A. Let's execute this one. Here the class 11A marks are showing here related to the science subject. Now we can find the lowest mark from this record. For that we used this method earlier in the previous videos. Min, that's the keyword. It will find the minimum value recorded in the attribute we are giving it. So here's the attribute in student exam mark record table, mark attribute. As I'm changing the attribute name to lowest mark. Okay, this is the attribute name here. The lowest mark is 23.5. Okay, that's the answer, and this is the query we used to get that answer. Okay, we completed the 3rd part of the question. Now let's move on to the 4th one. Find the average of the marks obtained in Amanda Moses' 2nd term mathematics, science and Sinhala language and literature. Here there are three major conditions in this question. We have to use to filter the data. The name of the student among the Moses and the second term, and this set of subjects. You can see in the database. Let me go to the database. And in the subject table there are only 3 subjects here. If you didn't mention the subject condition, if you didn't mention the condition related to these 3 subjects, the question will be okay for now. But if there are more than these 3 subjects, if there were more than these 3 subjects, the question will be wrong. So it's better you mention these 3 tables too in your condition, so it will increase the accuracy of our query. Okay, let's clear this older query. Here again I have to show you another important part. In the student table, we separate the student's name into 2 parts, first name and last name. So when we are mentioning our conditions, there will be 2 conditions related to the name. So there will be 4 conditions all. First name of the student, last name of the student, exam term, and the subjects. Now let's go back to the HDSQL browser. Again, I'm going to use the inner join method for this one, because there are many tables to work with, like exam term table, student table, and the student exam mark record table, and also the subject table. So I'm joining these 4 tables together using the inner join method. So select for now asterisk from, here's the first table in exam mark DB. First I'm joining the student exam mark record table. Let me show you the data here. These are the data recorded in the table, and I'm joining using the inner join method in exam mark DB the student table to that previous table, and with this condition on the student ID or index number of the student in student table should equal to the student number recorded in student exam mark record table. Let's execute this one. Here you can see we combine these 2 tables together. Now here is the third table or relation in our table list. Inner join in exam mark DB, I am joining the subject table to this one with the condition on the subject ID in subject table should equal to the subject ID in student exam mark record table. Let's execute this one. Here we connect the subject to, and after that again here's the last table inner join. I'm joining the exam term table. So in exam mark DB, exam term table should join with this condition or with this connection on the term ID in exam term table should equal to the term ID recorded in the student exam mark record table. Okay, here's the last table we joined. Here the term table is joined to. Okay, now we can filter this data using our conditions. Here's the first condition. I'm using the where keyword before mentioning the conditions. Here's the first one. I'm filtering the data using the first name and the last name of the student. So in student table, the first name of the student should equal to Amanda. Let's go and copy her first name. That will be accurate more than typing that name. And here's the second one. And again in the student table, last name should equal to Moses. Let's copy that one too. Let's execute this one. Here only the records of among the Moses student is showing here. Now here's the next condition. We don't need all first term and the second term subjects. We need only the second term subject. Here in the question you can see we have to find only the second term subjects related to these three subjects. So I'm filtering the data using the exam term now. So in exam term table, term name should equal to second term. Second term. Let's execute this one here. These are the three tables related to the three subjects. This answer is also correct, but for now, because there are only three tables in our subject list yet. But if there were more than these three subjects, this answer will be incorrect. So I am mentioning these three tables too with another condition, and the subject name in subject table should equal. You can see we have to find the names. We have to compare these three names: mathematics, science and Sinhala. So there will be three data. In this case we can't use, I told you we can't use equal mark. We have to use the int keyword because there are more than one value we have to compare. So the first one is should mathematics, and I'm separating the values using the comma, and here's the second one, science and Sinhala. Let's copy this one. It will be more accurate than typing. Okay, here again the same records here, but for now but now our query is more accurate than the previous one. Let's find our, here you can see we have to find the average. So again let's use our avg keyword, avg, and I need to find the average of the values recorded in the student the marks attribute in student exam mark record table. Let's execute this one here. This is the answer, 88.62666, and that will go on. You can see we don't need to find the round value for two decimal places because they specifically don't tell us to find that value. So this is the answer. I'm changing the attribute name as student average average marks. Okay, here we changed our attribute name, and this is the answer, and here's the query we used to get this answer. Okay, let's go to the last part. Here we complete the fourth one, and this is the last part of the question 29. Find the average to two decimal places in the marks obtained by the students in class 11A in the second term for all subjects. You can see we have to filter the data again with the class of these students. We used the inner join method in the previous one, so it's better we use the inner join method again for this last part because there are more tables to deal with. And here's the first condition. We have to filter the data using the class and then the second term, but we need to find the records related to all subjects. So these are the two conditions. First I'm going to join the tables. Let's clear this old one and join the tables again. Select asterisk, for now asterisk, from, here's the first table, exam mark DB, and I'm joining the student exam mark record table. Sorry, it's better we join the class table first. Class table, and inner join, I'm joining the student table to this one. Inner join in exam mark DB the student table. On, here's the condition, the class ID in class table should equal to the class ID in student table. Let's view the result here. We combine these two tables, class and the student, and again inner join, I'm joining another table in exam mark DB. I'm joining the student exam mark record table. On, the index number in student exam mark record table should equal to the index number recorded in the student table. Here, let's execute this one. We combine these three tables together and inner join. This is the last one. I'm joining the exam term table. We don't have to join the subject table because we have to find the records related to all the subjects. And inner join, I'm joining the exam term table in exam mark DB. In exam mark DB, exam term table. Okay. On, here's the condition, the term ID in exam term table should equal to the term ID in student exam mark record table. Okay, let's execute this one too. Here we combine all four tables together. Now we can write our conditions. First one is, before that we have to use the where keyword, and here's the first condition. I'm filtering the data using the term. We have to find only the second term test details. So in exam term table, the term name should equal to second term. Let's view this answer first. Here only the second term details are showing here. You can see in the term name only the second term details are showing here. And here's the next one. I am filtering the data using the class. We need to find only the records related to the students studying in class 11A. So in the class table, the class name should equal to 11A. 11A. Okay. Here only the class 11A students records related to the second term test are showing here. These are the final records. Now we can find the average into two decimal places. First I'm going to show you how to find the average again. We have to use the keyword average, AVG, to find the average. Here AVG, and we have to mention the attribute name. We need to find the average. So we have to find the average of the marks in student exam mark record table. Let me show you that answer here. The average is 76.5225. Now we have to round this result to two decimal places. So we have to use the round keyword. I cut the average function and write the round keyword, round, and we have to mention the value. We are going to find the round value. So value will be the average. Here I paste the average function, so that will output that value into this function. And here's the condition we have to use when we are finding the round value. The decimal places, we have to find the result in two decimal places. Okay, here let's type the number 2. Let's execute this one. Here the answer changed to 76.52. That's the average in 2 decimal places, and we can change the attribute name to student average marks. Student average marks, like that. Okay, here's the final answer, and this is the query we use to get that answer. Okay, we complete the 5th part of this question, and we complete the whole question 29, and I think that's it for this video. Let's see you in a next one. Thank you very much for watching.